Tzedakah is the gift of money or its equivalent. But sometimes that's not what we most need. We can suffer emotional as well as physical poverty. We can be depressed, lonely, close to despair. We may need company or comfort, encouragement or support. These too are human needs, no less real for being untranslatable into the language of politics or economics. And that is what CHESED is about. Emotional support, loving kindness, love as compassion. It's what we mean when we speak of God in Psalm 147 as one who heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. It includes hospitality to the lonely, visiting the sick, comforting the bereaved, raising the spirits of the depressed, helping people through crises in their lives, and making those at the margins feel part of the community. It's tzedakah's other side. Tzedakah is done with material goods, chesed with psychological ones, time and care. Tzedakah is practical support, chesed is emotional support. Tzedakah is a gift of resources, chesed is a gift of the person. Even those who lack the means to give tzedakah can still give chesed. Tzedakah rights wrongs. Chesed humanizes fate. Abraham and Sarah were chosen because of their chesed to others. Ruth became the ancestress of Israel's kings because of her chesed to Naomi. At the heart of the Judaic vision is the dream of a society based on chesed, society with a human face, not one dominated by the competition for wealth or power. Chesed is the mark of a people joined by covenant. Covenant creates society as extended family. It means seeing strangers as if they were our long-lost brothers or sisters. A community based on chesed is a place of grace, where everyone feels honored and everyone is at home.
Rabbi, we also have to thank you for initiating this program. And I would tell everyone and their auntie about Rabbi Sachs, and everyone got bored of hearing me. And finally, you wrote to me one day, the day after he passed away. So here's to thanking you once again, and for your wisdom, always bringing topics that stimulate the mind and the heart. And besides thanking, most importantly, everybody who joins us each month, we thank our wonderful speaker for taking time at this heart-rending period to think about us. And there's one thing that Rabbi Sachs said, it's also of the person. I remember my son once told me, Mom, the most precious thing you can give anyone is to listen. Just be there and listen to them. So let us all lend an ear. We want to thank also the beautiful office staff, Françoise, Viola, Linda Aboudi. They are the rock on which this synagogue leans on, with their creativity, their talent, their sincerity, and their devotion. So let us lend an ear to our eminent speaker. She's the spouse of our former Justice Minister, Erwin Cotler, the Honorable Erwin Cotler. She's the mother and grandmother of a huge family. And I guess over to you, Rabbi. Say a few words for us.
Thank you so much, Sandra. Thank you. This is the sixth unit of 10 Paths to God. We've been discussing so many topics from Rabbi Sachs and being inspired from his messages and his books. Yeah. And as Rabbi Sachs mentioned, the whole idea of chesed doesn't apply to certain people, it applies to everyone. A person can do chesed also with a rich person, doing bikur cholim or visiting, that could apply to everyone. It's a universal message the Rabbi Sachs is teaching us here. And as Sandra mentioned, Ariela personifies this idea of chesed and her devotion and everything she has done and she's still doing for the Jewish community. So we are honored to have her here tonight with her and share her experiences on this beautiful topic. Thank you so much for being here with us.
On to you, Ariela Cotler.
Thank you, thank you. Well, I have to tell you that watching Rabbi Sachs on the screen and hearing his voice, it really makes it hard to believe that he's actually not with us. And personally, as a personal friend, I miss him very, very much. I think that all of us miss him. His teaching, his spirituality, his leadership, his rabbinical role, his writing, his every week Torah portion, sending it all over the world to have it at our Shabbat tables to discuss. It's amazing. Just before he passed, I still receive it every week. Celebrating life, portion of the Torah. Actually, Rabbi Jonathan Sachs wrote his Divrei Torah and left it with his staff for the entire year. Isn't that amazing that the man of his spirituality, I guess, knew that he might not finish the year and therefore prepared, before he died, Divrei Torah for the whole year, and we're still receiving every Thursday at Dvar Torah for the parasha. I wanted to thank you so much, Sandra, for calling me and asking me to join in this amazing celebration of the life of one of, I think, the Jewish world and maybe the world over, most eminent spiritual, rabbinical, communal leader. And in today's reality, in today's world where it seems that the world is losing or lost its moral compass, obviously the voice of Rabbi Jonathan Sachs is so much more missing and so much more needed. And looking for a personality with his kind of voice, with his caliber, with his audience, Jewish and non-Jewish alike, with the rise of this horrific anti-Semitism all over the world, with the war on the state of Israel, with an attempt to eliminate us. And even in Montreal, I just heard some snippets of what happened in Montreal in the Israel rally, just as you discussed it before. Just before getting on this show, I got a message from a friend of mine, a dear friend in Montreal, was attacked by somebody outside his house, and St. Luc and Montreal and Toronto and Guelph, Ontario. I'm getting from my kids and from my grandchildren. Very upsetting stories, and we know that the evil in the world is raising its head, and we need to raise our voices. So what is more appropriate to discuss in this kind of world that is losing its morality and declining into some sort of chaotic situation, and to discuss the notion of chesed. So that was something that I was kind of assuming that everybody benefited from the rabbi sending the sources on the teaching of the rabbi himself, and I hope that people did read it. So I will not go directly to the reading of the rabbi because I don't want to repeat what you could all read. I wanted to take us all a little bit further from the text. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
And go maybe a little bit to different sources, from a little bit Kabbalistic, a little bit Mishnaic, a little bit Nevi'im, and even touch very briefly on something that we do, all of us, every morning when we start our day with a Shacharit prayer. How is Chesed, the divine Chesed? And then what is our role in emanating, copying, identifying ourselves with the Chesed of modeling after the Chesed that we learned from God. So Chesed in the Kabbalistic term is one of the 10 Sfirot, attributes of God. This is the Sphira that brings into the world the divine good, the infinite abundance, the Shefa Elohi, unlimited, without tzimtzum. I'll read it in Hebrew, a sentence that Harav Kook is using. En makom panui מהאהרה האלוהית. בכל מקום נמצא את האהרה האלוהית. That Chesed is bringing into the world the divine luminous, the light of God. There is no space in the universe that does not get the direct illumination directly from God, Ha'ara Elohit. This is how God entered the world. And therefore, we need to find our way within our human souls to symbolize the power of love, of willingness to do good with no boundaries. It is the impetus to expand it as a source of love, which gives itself without questioning who is the at the receiving end of this love. Unlimited good, unlimited love, unlimited kindness. This is the definition that Rabbi Jonathan Sachs gives to what Chesed is. It is interesting to note that in the Kabbalistic term, the tzimtzum, the elimination, did not eliminate the elements of tum'ah, of impurity, of evil from the world. There is a role in the Havaya, in the existence of the world, to roa, to evil. And its function is to limit midat chesed. That is very interesting. It's to limit midat chesed. In God's world, chesed is not limited. There is no tzimtzum. But in our world, roa, which exists even to look into our world today, is to restrict chesed and to not use the midat chesed to people who do not deserve it. In the same way that we can say today, Israel is requested by the world to support Hamas as they're shooting rockets on us. They're using international humanitarian law and requesting chasadim from Israel. Okay, provide us humanitarian aid, give us water, give us electricity. So the tzimtzum of chesed in the human world is not as unlimited as it is in the divine world. There's a fundamental gap between the divine chesed and the human. While we know that chesed Hashem is infinite, olam chesed yibaneh, the foundation of the world that God created is chesed. It is up to humanity to continue his way, to keep the world and sustain it by act of chesed. Our daily prayer in Mishnah, in Nevi'im, give us a roadmap. How do we continue in God's world to create this world and to sustain it? In Sefer HaMitzvot of Rambam, he looks at the 13 Amidot, the 13 attributes of God. And he tries to explain to us, why do we need to use chesed in our daily life? He says, היא שציוונו להידמות לפי יכולתנו, והוא אמרו ללכת בדרכיו, הוא כבר כפל ציווי זה ואמר ללכת בכל דרכיו, and then he quotes the 13 המידות, השם השם אל רחום וחנון, מהו רחום? אף אתה חנון, אף אתה רחום, מהו חנון? אף אתה חנון, אף הוא ערך אפיים, אף אתה ערך אפיים. So we have to imitate God's characteristics in his attitude towards humanity in the way he created the world. We know that in the פרקי אבות we study על 3 דברים העולם עומד, על התורה, על העבודה ועל גמילות חסדים. In the secular questioning, if you ask what is the world standing on, they will tell you on a turtle with 4 elephants. We don't need so many legs. For us, the world is standing on 3 legs. רבי שמעון הצדיק, משערי הכנסת הגדולה, רבי שמעון הצדיק, that was at the end of the כנסת הגדולה in the 3rd century, at the end of the Second Temple period, when he relates to that, explains the 3 elements, the 3 legs that the world stands on, על התורה, על העבודה, ועל גמילות חסדים. The 3rd leg of what the world stands on is גמילות חסדים. על התורה, that is studying of Torah. עבודה, this is the working of God, but גמילות חסדים is between us, one human to the next, as imitating God's behavior towards us and in creation of the world. גמילות חסדים is a loving kindness and action that you do without any expectations for a reward, any expectations for a benefit, for reciprocity. We say that every morning in our prayer, אלה הם דברים שאין להם שיעור, okay? What are the unlimited, uncountable mitzvot that we have to do in chesed, that אין להם שיעור, that have no boundaries? הלוויית המת, there is no reciprocity in following the dead in a funeral. ביקור חולים, you don't expect a reciprocity. All kind of action of kindness, of mercy, of giving of yourself to the other in an unlimited world is not to be reciprocated. You don't expect it, you do it because it is the right thing to do, and out of the believing in the intrinsic value of the good. Those are the things you do because you believe that אין להם שיעור, they are limitless. The rabbis identify 3 very important things in which גמילות חסדים is higher in its importance than tzedakah. And they says, tzedakah בממונו, גמילות חסדים בין בממונו בין בגופו. Tzedakah is given with the material good, with a person's money, funds. גמילות חסידים, it can be with his body, with his emotions, with his feelings, and also with his material goods. Tzedakah, charity, you give to the poor. גמילות חסדים, you give בין לעניים, בין לעשירים, whether the person is rich or poor. צדקה לחיים, גמילות חסדים, בין לחיים, בין למתים. גמילות חסדים you do to the living or to the dead, while tzedakah you do only to the living. So the rabbis already identified those 3 elements that gmilut chasadim is higher than mitzvah tzedakah. They identify 4 very significant attributes in humanity, in a person, in a human being, to identify them and look at what they see as a person that is chassid, that is doing chesed. The person that says, sheli, sheli, v'shelcha, shelcha, what's mine is mine, what's yours is yours, is an average person, and they say this is midat Sdom. This is not a good attribute. It's like the people of Sdom. Mine is mine, yours is yours. Like there is no connection, there is no humanity, there is no feelings, there is no willingness to look at the other. It's mine and I'm separated from you. The second is sheli, shelcha, v'shelcha, sheli. What's yours is mine, what's mine is yours. This is Am Haaretz. Sheli shelcha v'shelcha shelcha. This is the Chassid. Whatever is mine is yours. And I don't expect anything from you. Whatever is yours too. This is Midat Chesed. Then he looks at Sheli, Sheli, v'shelcha sheli. What's mine is mine. How many people like that do we know in the world today? What's mine is mine, and what's yours is mine. This is wicked. So look at the beautiful way of the rabbis in very, very few words, how they separate humanity into categories of the values of what makes a person a chassid, a person that does loving, out of loving kindness, the right things, and without expecting any remuneration, any thanks, any appreciation for what it does, only because it is the right thing to do. One of the prophets, Micha, says it in a very, very short one sentence. Higid lecha Adam, ma tov, ומה השם דורש ממך? כי אם עשות משפט ואהבת חסד והצנע לכת עם אלוהיך. I'll tell you, human being, what is God asking of you? עשות משפט, justice, אהבת חסד, loving kindness, and walk humbly in the ways of God. This is the legacy that we learned so much from Rabbi Jonathan Sachs. In all his demeanor, in all his teaching, in his day-to-day behavior with all of us that we knew him, and with the multitude that he taught through all his books and all his weekly writings. His endless giving to humanity, his endless giving to each and every one of us, whether he knew us or not. This is what real loving kindness, real humble, real giving, genuine giving is all about. We learn it from Rabbi Jonathan Sachs. We learn it from our rabbi, and we learn it from our prophets. We learn it in every way that we can see ourselves acting on a daily basis. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, in his learning that the rabbi distributed, is bringing up few stories of what action of chesed are. And he's telling us a beautiful story about this rabbi, that the person is coming into the shtetl, into the village where this rabbi is, and every morning he disappears and nobody knows where he is. The visitor to the village is asking the disciples of the rabbi, the students, the community, where's your rabbi every morning? And they say, he is such a holy man, he is up in heaven. And this kind of skeptical, intellectual person thinks to himself, the rabbi goes to heaven, comes back to earth. Okay, this is for the Hasidim, the followers of this rabbi to believe. He did not believe it. So he decided to follow the rabbi and see what is exactly happening there. So he goes and he sleeps in the rabbi's house quietly in the corner, and he's waiting to see what's happening in the morning. So the rabbi is sleeping peacefully in bed at night. In the morning, he gets up and he gets dressed in the most simple peasant's clothing. And he goes out. Quietly, he follows him and he sees him going to the forest. The rabbi is chopping wood, cutting it to pieces, and walking back to the village, to a home of this poor, lonely old woman. He knocks on the door and he said, "Good morning, my name is Vasily. I'm the farmer and I brought you some wood, very cheap, I will not charge you much." She said, "Vasily, I cannot pay you. I don't have anything to pay you with." She said, "It's okay. Don't pay me now. You'll be able to pay me some other time." She said, "I don't think I'll be able to pay you another time." She said, "Don't you believe in God? That he will help you one day pay me back?" He knew who is going to pay him back for that. The old woman did not know what he meant. She said, "But what am I going to do with the wood? I can't even put the fire on by myself." She says, "It's okay." He goes in, puts the wood in her oven, turns the fire on, and leaves. Goes back to his yeshiva, to the synagogue, to house, changes into the rabbi's clothing. This man is following him the whole way. And he comes back and he says, no, he is not going to heaven. He is going much higher than heaven. The understanding of this person going over and above, the rabbi, going over and above, discarding himself as a peasant, going to a home of one morning to this poor woman. That was happening every morning. Another morning he went to another poor family. A third morning he was. That is chesed at its ultimate. The recipient does not know who is giving it to him. The recipient is not expected to pay back. You giving because simply it is the right thing to do. The Nevi'im say that. The Pirkei Avot teaches us that. We learn that from our rabbi. We emulate Rabbi Jonathan Sachs with his action. We learned from the way of God. We know when we say the Brachot HaShachar, Baruch Ata Hashem, Zokef Kfufim, Baruch Ata Hashem, Malbish Arumim, Baruch Ata Hashem, זוקף כפופים, מלביש ערומים, מתיר אסורים, פוקח עיוורים. Every blessing that we say in our morning prayer, God is strengthening our backs, breaks our bondage, open our eyes, give us sustenance. We say that God gives us all that every day. And we, as good imitating of God's behavior, do that for others. We help the poor without expectation. We raise the spirit of the broken soul. We go to a levaya of a person, whether he's important or not important, whether he's a big person or a poor person, whether you knew him or you did not. You go to visit the sick in a hospital. It doesn't have to be a relative. I remember my rabbi, Rabbi Joshua Schmidman, Zichrono Livracha, walking at the Jewish General Hospital every day, for hours, from one bed to the next, just visiting the sick. Bikur Cholim. We know God did this chesed. God did this chesed when he came to visit Abraham. Abraham was sick and healing after his circumcision, and God came over to do a Bikur Cholim. Every move of every day, of every action of kindness we do, we tilt the balance of this world full of evil. We know that evil exists in the world. It stayed in the world. It was not eliminated. It's eliminated in the world of God. It's not eliminated in our world. In order to repair that world, in order to eliminate or to shrink the influence of evil, it's our role every day in every action. Do good, do justice, be merciful, support the weak, talk to the depressed. I can tell you now, with everything that is going on right around us here, I'm a social worker. I know how hard social workers in this country are right now, how over and above and beyond the hours they're working now with people that are traumatized, children, older people, younger people, traumatized in Sderot, in Ashkelon, in Ashdod, even in Tel Aviv, traumatized. I know how hard they're working. What is more simple for anyone like myself, like anybody else, with training or without training? Pick up the phone. Pick up the phone. I asked, can I help any of you in a trauma center to talk to people? I'm willing to go down to Sderot or Ashkelon or Ashdod and be in the bomb shelters with the families. I will go. I will go. I'm not doing it to get anything out of it other than to give. Chesed is the willingness and the ability of unlimited willingness to give without any intentions to receive. Chesed is only about giving. Chesed has nothing to do with getting. And if we want to sustain this world that is really right now, as we're looking around us, not doing that much chesed, not for the Jews, not for many, many other groups in the world today. If we want to make sure that God's world will remain, all we have to do is continue doing chesed every day, everywhere we go, in the teaching of Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, in the teaching of our Mishnah, of our prayer, of our Nevi'im, every day, all day, to everyone around us. And that is what's going to keep us going. This is what chesed is for me. Thank you.
Nice. Wow. That's so nice.
It's so heartwarming just to listen to your words.
Yes.
They are so simple because they come right from the heart. I think the reward is much bigger for the giver, because you feel like you're, like you say, imitating God. What can be more honorable than that? What can be more rewarding?
I kind of always had an issue with even thinking in terms of reward. You do because you do, you act because you act, and you don't think beyond what you feel you must do. It's about emotions. It's not about thinking. Chesed is not about thinking. It's not about calculating. It's not about the terminology of reward is in my feelings, alienated to the sense of giving without any strings attached to it. You're right that there is a feeling that the giver is in some way receiving more than the recipient in terms of their own feeling of doing good. But the terminology reward has
Is-
a connotation to it that
Yeah.
takes away from that
Absolutely.
feeling.
Absolutely. I heard a lot Rabbi Manis Friedman saying that it's like when God wanted us to partner with him, he created us. That is the ultimate giving. I mean, everything we have, our limbs, our cells, our bones, our eyes, our lungs, everything we have.
There's a beautiful Bereshit Rabbah which comes to my mind. Rabbi, you might help me if I misquote it, because it's kind of, as you said, that the sentence, God created us, and it broke something from Bereshit Rabbah to my mind, that when God decided to create man, there was a fight in heaven. Chesed said, yes, create him, because man is going to do chesed. Emet said, no, because he is going to do not too many good things. And then God threw Emet to the ground, because he did not want Emet to win the battle, because Emet said that man is going to lie, etc. So he threw Emet to the ground, and the other angel said, why do you discard? And God created man. While they were fighting, God created man. So it was a reality already. It was a fait accompli. But chesed was for creation of man, not Emet. Okay, that's why they say Emet me'eretz titzmach. The truth will rise from the ground. Emet was thrown by God to the ground. It's now through doing chesed, we have to kind of tell Emet, you were wrong. You see, chesed was right. That's why God created humanity, because Emet now can come back. Emet me'eretz titzmach, Emet can rise from the ground with humanity, because we are proving chesed right. And we are proving to Emet that we have the way of Emet too. Right, Rabbi? Did I quote it correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. There were other two there that I forgot who was there also. There was somebody Tzedek said no. And
there was Tzedek, there was Emet, there was Chesed.
Chesed said yes, and Emet said no.
Yeah, Tzedek says, well, man is full of strife. He's going to fight all the time. So
but Chesed won the day. And look, we owe a lot to Tzedek, to Chesed, because if Chesed would have been defeated by Tzedek and by Emet, God might have not created us. God had to throw Emet to the ground.
And he created us. He didn't want anything in return. He for nothing, just because. And that's where you say, let's imitate him.
You know, if we're talking about God, I mean, Melo kol haaretz kvodo, okay? We say God did not need anything, okay? Melo kol haaretz kvodo, he needed nothing, he needs nothing. So if Melo kol haaretz kvodo, then what is the world? Where do we fit into that world? So God shrank. That's the concept of tzimtzum. God limited himself in order to create space for us. So now that we take that space that God limited himself in order to create that space for us, we have to use that limited space that God created for us to do what God would have done in that space. And what would God do in that space? Chesed, mishpat, and tzedakah. And therefore, what we have to do in the space that we now fill in the space that God gave us, to fill in the gap that he shrunk himself, chesed, mishpat, and tzedakah. Like Micha said, הגיד לך אדם מה טוב ומה השם דורש ממך, כי אם עשות משפט ואהבת חסד והצנע לכת עם אלוהיך.
So beautiful.
We look at the summation of what is God asking us by creating us into that space that he shrank himself in order to allow us to be partners in that world. This is all he's asking. Mishpat tzedek, asot mishpat, justice, chesed, loving kindness, and walk humbly with God.
And he's perfect. He has everything, like exactly what you're positing. So why did he have to create this huge, even the stars and the planets, just to benefit this little earth that has so much? Because he didn't want to be alone.
I don't think that God had an issue to be alone. I think that God wanted kol haneshama tehalel yah. He wanted to give us, humanity, the opportunity to lehalel yah. By being in that space, our role is to letaken olam b'malchut shaddai. It's not, he didn't put us in the world because he needed company. If melo kol haaretz kvodo, obviously does not need company. He didn't create us because he needed company. Particularly kind of a company we are, eh? Sometimes we're not such great company. Just look around you in the world today. We're not such great company. He created us because he wanted us to become partners in his creation. Okay? God put us in this world, le'ovda u'leshomra. He created a world for us to be able to become his partners in that creation, le'ovda u'leshomra, to work it and to preserve it and to keep it and to better it. Letaken olam b'malchut shaddai. We say every day in Alenu Leshabeach. Our job is letaken olam. Everybody is talking today. They think there's a joke that people ask, how do you say tikkun olam in Hebrew? Because everywhere today you go and on campuses, they're saying tikkun olam, tikkun olam, tikkun olam. What is tikkun olam? They don't know where it's coming from. What is tikkun olam in Hebrew? Tikkun olam in Hebrew means nothing if you don't say letaken olam, tikkun olam b'malchut shaddai, in the kingdom of God, in the way of God. That is the true tikkun olam. And what is the way of God? Chesed, mishpat, and tzedakah. So tikkun olam, this broken world that God shrank himself in order to give us, is a world that is missing that chesed, mishpat, and tzedakah. And the job of every one of us is exactly that, to create that space of chesed, mishpat, and tzedakah. My dear friends, it's 3 a.m. And if I do not fall asleep on that computer, I am not normal, but I won't fall asleep. Are there any more questions and discussion that anybody wants to?
Yes, do we have any questions for Ariela?
That's beautiful. Beautiful.
I don't hear.
Anybody who has a question, can you put it in the chat? Because I have my chat screen open here.
Yes, of course, we'll do. It was a great talk, great presentation.
Thank you.
Who is speaking?
Danny and Marian.
Oh, Danny, I'm so glad you're here.
Yes,
Amazing. Amazing. Ariela, how did you start in the field of social work? Where, what drew you into it? Give us a little window.
A little window. It's a very little window. I'm by profession, I'm an educator. But and when I worked in my parliamentary job, I had citizens coming from all walks of life, asking the members of parliament I worked for, Menachem Begin and others, for help. And I was the social worker, kind of, in my previous life, not with the professional tools. I did not study social work. I was a historian and I did legislation. But because I worked with a person like Menachem Begin and a lot of people approached him for help, I had home visits and I was involved in underprivileged families and underprivileged children, etc., etc. And I, through my representing him, I had to do the work with these people. So when I came to Canada and I realized that my career in pursuing my PhD in history was going to not continue in Montreal, I decided to do a degree in social work, and what I did non-professionally, do professionally. And that's when I went to McGill and I did a master's in social work.
That's, and when was it when you started to pilot this program of the yearly rallies for, I have a flag behind me in your honor.
Okay, so when I came to Montreal, when I made Irwin and moved to Montreal, I moved with me my previous life, which was community involvement and political involvement. So I became involved in very many community organizations, from federation to bonds to the various universities. All the years I was a member of the Jewish Education Council and dealt a lot with Jewish identity issues and Jewish education issues, and lectured in various synagogues and chapters of sisterhoods and brotherhoods, Israel updates, the wars, the problematics with the Arab world, etc., Middle East updates, etc. I've done that throughout the years. In 2000, I was asked to become, 1999, the president of Hillel, which I took on and did a lot of Middle East education for the students. And then, if you remember, the year 2000, the Intifada started. And then there were a lot of bombs exploding everywhere. And I suggested to Federation to have a rally, a Yom Ha'atzmaut rally downtown. They wanted to do something smaller outside of the Federation building, etc. So via the help of Amos Ochachevsky and B'nai B'rith, we decided that we're going to do a major rally, and that's how it started in 2001.
And you organized all the busing of the children from all the schools?
It was not it was a committee. The idea came from me, the push came from me, that's true. Yeah. But then there was a wonderful, wonderful community. The rabbis supported it, Jewish Education Council supported it, the synagogues supported it, all the rabbis were very much for it. We provided the buses, yeah, and there was one individual, if we're talking about an individual that his commitment is unlimited, is Amos Ochachevsky. When Federation did not, was not there to put the money, he put the bill. So I could come with a great idea maybe, but if he was not coming with the full. With
the tzedakah.
With the tzedakah. So
Yeah.
it would have stayed on as a theoretical good idea, but not material.
We have a profound question. Lisette Shashua, who, bless her, she has done so much for the history of the Iraqi Jews, and
Yeah.
she is a beacon of light in this area, and we're so proud of her. She is asking, what do you, Ariela, think of this terrible reaction against the Jews all over the world? Why is it happening to us again and again?
Ay, Lisette, I love you. What kind of a question is that?
We all love that.
exist.
Very
exist.
valid question.
They never, how do we say? חזקה היא שעשיו שונאו ליעקב. From the time of the fight between Esav and Yaakov, Esav שונא Yaakov. What can we do? We have to do our job. And it's not what we do or what we will not do that will have them stop hating us. I think that anti-Semitism started at the time of פרעה, ישנו עם אחד, נדן המן, פן יפרוץ ועלה מן הארץ, את פרעה time, and כל הבן הילוד היאורה תשליכו, with an attempt to destroy us then in Egypt, then going throughout history. Fast forward to Haman HaRasha, fast forward to Bogdan Khmelensky, fast forward to the Inquisition in Spain, fast forward to, any period of Jewish history, of world history, in millennia of world reality, of world history. We are, as Haman said, ישנו עם אחד מפוזר ומפורד בין הגויים, אשר דתם לא תדתנו. We are not like them, we don't eat like them, we don't dress like them, we don't talk like them, we don't behave like them. We're different. We're small, but we're different. We have our ways. And the only way, I'll say that, and it breaks my heart to say it. I remember when I took the first time, in 1990, the first group of March of the Living Kids from Montreal. And we were in a market in Auschwitz, the farmers outside of Auschwitz in that village. There were no Jews in Poland. There were no Jews in Poland. They made sure that there will be no Jews in Poland. But on every shelf, no matter what the farmers sold, it was tomatoes, potatoes, carrots, there was a shelf of a Stirmer-like image of a Jew. You all know what Stirmer is.
No.
Okay, the caricature of the Jew.
Oh, yeah.
Nosed, holding on like a Satan, holding on a bag of money in his hand. They did not see a Jew.
Terrible.
These young people in the market. I'm talking 1990. There were no Jews in Poland. From 1945, there were no Jews in Poland. Few, one here, one there. There were no Jews in Poland. Anti-Semitism was in Poland in 1990. Did it disappear? No. We see anti-Semitism today not shrinking, escalating, growing, one year after another, one day after another. And now, in Montreal, in Côte Saint-Luc, everywhere else, it's not what we do, and it's not what we do not do. It is what we are. And the blame is not on us, and we don't have to soul search. What do we do wrong? The onus is on the hater to check why do they hate. To believe that anti-Semitism will disappear one day, I don't believe so. It might go up and down in waves, in periods, but I don't believe that it will ever disappear. Sorry.
Ariela, the only thing, if I can piggyback on you, on your comment, the only thing that gives me solace to this question is um, you know, Rabbi Friedman again, he says, we had a miserable existence, but we had,
And we had a great one too.
wait. But he says, we had a beautiful life. And life is only what we're talking about today, tonight, at this year. It must be 3 o'clock in the morning there. We have to thank you so much. But yes, we had an ebullient life. Look how much we made the world go around. I mean, in the street, there's one side going this way, the other side, nothing colliding. All this comes from what we daughtered into the world. And we didn't ask for anything in return.
Yeah. And still they hate us. It's their problem.
But
So-
you know, Ariela, like when we were in Iraq, it was so bad. When we left Iraq, it was, wow, thank God we can be normal. We came to Canada, it was utopia, it was paradise. But they followed us to Canada, to the States. There's nowhere to go anymore. Where
That's
do we
what
go
I
tomorrow?
say.
Yes, there is. Yes, there is a place to go.
Israel.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Amazing.
2021 is not 1921 or 1939 or 1941. 2021, thank God, with all the difficulties, and they are, with all the chaos, political chaos, which there is, and with Hamas, which is a problem. This is the best place in the world to be.
I
The
think
most
everyone
wonderful
agrees now.
place to bring up our children, the best.
I think
So,
even the
yeah.
Goyim, they think that too.
What?
I think even the Goyim, they think that too. Everybody's looking to Israel.
Not after what happened, the bombardment this week, not the Goyim. Maybe us, but not the Goyim.
Well, I've been listening to Americans saying, bringing their support behind the Israelis. They spoke so beautifully, and they admire us.
The Republicans, not the Democrats.
Yeah, well, at least there are some. We have Marian Dana saying, thank you, Ariela, for a great presentation. Marian and I really enjoyed it. Then we have Karen saying, thank you for the talk on compassion, Ariela, and to the Spanish for organizing these conferences. I was illegally evicted and had to evacuate my apartment at the beginning of the pandemic. A friend graciously offered a place for a few months. After I moved again to a new place, but the landlord took 8 months to provide a working
Why did you
place.
say poop?
Does anyone know of a safe place to live? Karen to everybody.
You know what?
Karen, please, Karen.
Yeah, you didn't finish our. C'est nous qui les empêchons de dormir.
Karen.
Can we mute everybody? Karen, please call the rabbi at 514-506-3164. God bless you, Rabbi. Ariela, how did you meet Erwin Cotler? And before you go on, before you go on, I want to talk about
Do
Menachem
me a
Begin.
chesed. It's a long story.
Okay, forget that.
We're talking about loving kindness.
Yeah.
Love me. Do me a chesed. Let me go to sleep.
Yeah, I was
Okay,
gonna
I
say, I think the chesed will be
Today's
now.
topic is about chesed, not about Ariela.
Okay, but
I hope I did a good job about chesed. Let's
You
leave the
did.
rest of it to another
I
time.
just want to tell you something
Right,
about Menachem Begin. When they were firing at the ship that he came with the armament, and Ben Gurion, at Helena, and Ben Gurion didn't agree. Each one thought they were doing the right thing, and Ben Gurion told his people to shoot at the ship, and
It is
16
another
of his
big
men.
story.
But Menachem Begin, he said, no, don't shoot back. Jews don't hit each other. So that's the best way. You mentioned his name, you worked for him. These must be the best memories you have.
I was not there. I was barely born, but I know the story. It's a very complicated story too, but not for tonight. If you want to have one time a session about Menachem Begin and about his life and about some of those stories, we can do that separately, definitely not for tonight.
Oh, cool.
Thank you,
So
Ariela.
look,
Thank
we'll
you.
take it, we'll note that down.
Wants to go to sleep.
Thank you,
Okay, so
Ariela. God bless
bye-bye.
you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Good night.